Going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Jump. A lot to talk about because this is now currently the best time of the year for a college athletics fan like me. So college basketball just started yesterday as I'm filming this. So little early thoughts, maybe some hot takes, something like that. And then a lot of college football to get to. Tonight, it may be election night, but the thing I'm turning into is the college football playoff selection show. So I've had that on, I've been watching that, and I'll share some of my thoughts on that. So with all that being said, let's get straight into it. So first, let's talk about Week 10. I'll get to the college football playoff here in a minute. So if you want to just hear that part and kind of like a reaction type thing, you can skip to that part. And I'll just do some Week 10 recap real quick because I didn't get to talk about that on Saturday night. So real quick, Ohio State, Penn State, number 4 on the road. Buckeyes traveling to Happy Valley. 20-13 final. That looks like what a lot of people thought it was going to happen, but how it got there was crazy. One of the most chaotic football games I think I've ever watched in my entire life. And Penn State played well, obviously putting up 13 on that team, being a touchdown away, and getting to the one there, and you obviously got stopped. But that was the tail of the game. There was 0 offensive touchdowns in 4 trips in the red zone. That just can't happen. There's 2 field goals, and then the early pick 6. But I think that's honestly a testament to Will Howard, if anything, because he throws that early pick 6. You can shut down at that point. They're down 10-0 early. He comes back and absolutely balls out, makes crazy plays, and they don't win that game without him. So what he was able to do was amazing. The story of the game, going into it, I mentioned it last week, and the highlight of the game that I had my eyes on the entire time was that left tackle for Ohio State. So the starter goes down, he's hurt. The backup goes down, he's hurt. All-American left guard moves to left tackle and then moved the left guard back up in to start. So obviously that creates a whole bunch of confusion. And if you don't know how these snap counts work and stuff when it's a crazy environment like it was in Happy Valley on Saturday, there's a lot of communication, like things that you can do on the O-line or do something. So the thing that Ohio State opted to do was the left guard will look back at Will Howard. When he's ready to snap it, he'll give a signal instead of trying to do a clap because you won't be able to hear it. So he signals to the left guard that he's ready. The left guard will signal to the center that he's ready. Then they'll snap it. So all of that confusion that you have is with a backup left guard. And you have a guy that's playing left tackle that has never played left tackle before, facing Abdul Carter, like a top 3 to 5 edge rusher in all of America. That you would think would cause havoc. And Abdul Carter got him a couple times, but I mean, for the most part, which a lot of times, shout out to Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, they schematically planned for it, obviously, knowing that going into it, putting tight ends on that side or keeping it away from it or trying to just get in Abdul Carter's head. And I mean, it's a great defense. It's not the same defense that Penn State's had the last couple of years, but this is still one of the most elite defenses in all of college football. And what they were able to do schematically is amazing. And I know one of the biggest takeaways was the end of the game, getting the ball on the 1 yard line and being able to, it was like 6 minutes left, and they're able to run that ball out and end the game effective immediately, just like that. They were able to run the ball, draw up plays, all these different things. And that was kind of the big takeaway for Ohio State fans from what I've been able to see on social media and stuff. So that was kind of the big takeaways. Like I mentioned, though, it was one of the most chaotic games I've ever seen before because you have the pick before the half was incredible. I thought they were going to call it a touchdown, and then they review it, and you don't even see the pick until it's reviewed. So that interception, I can't remember the guy's name, but the interception at the end of half, the ball going out on Will Howard, like it felt like once Ohio State had kind of got back, I think they went up 14-10. It felt like at that point there was no chance they were ever going to lose. That was just kind of the vibe I was getting. But the Will Howard touchdown, like that one gets taken away. That was 6 points right there. But it's perfect hit. He knocks the ball out, and it goes off Will Howard's leg into the end zone for a touchback. It's just great awareness out of the defense there. And it's just insanely impressive that Penn State's able to hang around. Even though Ohio State felt like they were truly dominating this game, Penn State's hanging in there, and they had an opportunity there at the end. And I do want to give a shout out to Caleb Downs, obviously one of the biggest names in the portal, leaving Alabama this offseason and traveling over to Ohio State, probably for a lot of money. Um, he gave Tyler Warren his worst game of the season. Tyler Warren is the one true playmaker that Penn State has. Julian Fleming has not been the guy that they thought he was going to be. There's not really a deep threat downfield, and Tyler Warren has really dominated every team they've played until this point. Caleb Downs, I remember they were popping up a stat towards the end. He had like maybe 4 targets, which was crazy that it was that low, but it was because Caleb wouldn't allow him to get open. He had like 4 targets for like 20 yards or something. And they finally got him going there, like at the very end, had the huge play to get him down to the 3. And then, in my mind, you just give that ball to Tyler Warren over and over and over and over, and he's going to get in the end zone. That's kind of my thoughts on it, but they went with, I think it was Singleton that ran. It may have been Katron Allen, or not Katron, Fat Man. My bad. Gus Johnson was, it was the longest way of explaining how he was named Fat Man ever. But Katron Allen, not Katron, Fat Man. But I just feel like you got to give it to Tyler Warren right there. That's your guy. That's your playmaker. And he's just an incredible football player. And I thought that was kind of the mindset going into that situation. So they end up not scoring and not getting it done. And I mentioned it last week. This was kind of the week to tell who can't win the big one. And it was James Franklin once again. So now we have the insult stats that we have to bring up because James Franklin now at Penn State, 1-7 against top 10 teams at home, 6-10 versus ranked teams at home, 1-13 versus top 5 teams, and 1-10 versus Ohio State. Obviously, nobody, maybe Penn State fans do, I don't know. Nobody outside of Penn State is expecting them to just fully just dominate, win championships nearly every year. And I don't think most of them think that. I think it's kind of like let it line up, let them get a couple of recruits that end up staying and let things line up and then compete every few years and maybe beat Ohio State and do all these different things. But he's just never doing it. And that's the problem that I think a lot of Penn State fans have. They can't buy him out, though. I mean, the buyout is way too much. So he's there to stay. And I think he's a phenomenal coach. I think they're going to go 11-1, make the college football playoff. And then if they win a game there, I think you have to be happy with how that season went when it could be a lot worse. So I don't think it's time to overreact if you're a Penn State fan. I think James Franklin's going to be fine. And the team that Ohio State has, you can't expect many teams to line up against that team and have a chance to win. I know that Nick Saban and a bunch of these people have kind of clowned him getting $1 million rosters, but it is true. I mean, they have a phenomenal team, and they've brought back so many guys and brought in transfers and stuff. So Ohio State's just absolutely loaded, and can't really hang your head on that one. But Penn State, once again, can't get it done against Ohio State. So I think both fan bases were really nervous going into it, but it felt like if not now, win for James Franklin, but they were not able to get it done. And like I mentioned, Tyler Warren, phenomenal. The two-headed monster of Nick Singleton and Katron is really, really good. I think Drew Allar is spectacular. I think Drew Allar is one of the most disrespected quarterbacks in the country. He just doesn't really have weapons to throw to, and that's where the issues come in at the end of the day. And I mean, honestly, I've heard so many people try to make this point. Andy Kotelnicki, he's obviously an offensive mastermind. He obviously knows what he's doing, but you can find thousands of people on Twitter. I've seen people talk about it on podcasts and stuff. That guy is getting too cute when he shouldn't be. He's sitting there motioning like linemen and there's just some goofy stuff he's doing when it's not necessary at all. So that's obviously a little bit of a flaw, but Kotelnicki's still figuring it out, and I think they'll be fine going down the stretch. And they got an opportunity this week to win over a pretty good team in Washington, so a hot team in Washington. So good opportunity to get back on track for the Nittany Lions. But before I get away from this game, Jason Kelsey. So it's now come out that Penn State's going to investigate the situation with it. If you haven't seen it, there's a guy that walks up and he's videoing Kelsey. He's like right up on him, and he says, "Hey, Kelsey, how does it feel to be a blank?" You can find the video. I'm not going to say it on here, but how does it feel to be a blank? Or how does it feel to be a blank and have your brother dating Taylor Swift, or how does it feel that your brother is a blank dating Taylor Swift? It was one of those. Obviously, terrible, because you like you can say stuff about people and then you bring in the family and it's too far, and possibly soon sister-in-law. Like this is a very tight group of people. These are family members. So once he says that, that's where Jason kind of snaps. He turns around, grabs the kid's phone, throws it at the ground, and I think he ends up picking it up and walking away with it for a second. Turns around, gives it to the kid, and he said, "Who's the blank now?" Kind of getting him back. And the overwhelming majority of people are on Jason Kelsey's side because it's like literally harassment. And it's just, I mean, if he would have beat that kid up, obviously he would have gotten in trouble, but no, I don't think anybody would have blamed him. So yeah, that kid, I think learned his lesson. We'll just leave it like that. But I know on Monday Night Football, Kelsey had like apologized and tried to clear things up, but it's just a tough look for him. But I don't fault him at all, and I think he did the right thing. And he said he had matched hate with hate. So I guess I can see like that point of view. You probably shouldn't you should maybe try to walk off, but like the kid wasn't leaving him and he was walking right up to him. I can't blame Jason Kelsey at all. So he was obviously a man of the people. He was great on the game day set that morning, and obviously it ended with a little blemish, but for good reason. So shout out to Jason Kelsey, and I hope nothing comes from that investigation because he's being harassed. Some of the other games I want to note. Vanderbilt, they went down and beat Auburn. Somehow, I don't know who is working in Vegas, but Auburn was a 7.5 point favorite. I think it may have got to like 8.5 at one point. Vandy went down and won 17-7, and now Diego Pavia is 3-0 versus Hugh Freeze. Won at Liberty and then at New Mexico State last year against Auburn. So Diego Pavia just owns Hugh Freeze, and it was a huge win. But Vanderbilt, for the first time since 1955, beat Auburn and Alabama in the same season. And it was their first win ever on the Plains. First time ever winning at Auburn. So it's awesome to see. And I will bring up Vandy in a little bit because they were snubbed from the college football playoff. So that a little sneak peek if you haven't seen it yet. Clemson loses their first night game since 2013. This is a super interesting team in Louisville. The Louisville Cardinals are really good, I think. I don't know if I'll say good, not really good. Their only losses are two teams that are in the college football playoff right now, and one that's the first team out. So obviously they have two home losses, but one is to one of the best teams in America with a possible Heisman winner, and then the other one is SMU, who's rolled everybody except, well, I guess Nevada the first game, but then BYU, and BYU that one's aged perfectly. So they've all been losses to great teams. Nobody in their right mind expected this to happen, but it was, they did enough defensively to be able to stop this Clemson offense that felt like it was just a wagon. And then on offense, they were just rolling. And the Isaac Brown dagger going down to the Clemson Tiger in the end zone and doing the Steph Curry sleep was one of the coldest things I've ever seen in my life. So, shout out to Louisville, though. I mean, like Tyler Shuck, I mentioned him in the last one. He's not on my Heisman list, but that man deserves a whole lot more respect than he's getting because Tyler Shuck, I think they said during the Clemson game, I'd heard them mention that there was like 3 quarterbacks in the country that had like 20-plus passing touchdowns or something, and like 2 of them were in that game. Maybe it was on game day or something. But 3 are in the ACC. It's just Cam Ward, Cade Klubnik, and Tyler Shuck. So elite group of quarterbacks in that conference right now. And then Georgia survives again. This is just a shock because it was even after DJ Lagway went out and Aiden Brown, I think I might be messing up his name, but Aiden comes in and he's balling as well. I mean, he had the one pick that was like a freakish athleticism type of interception. That one I can't really fault him too much on. I mean, he probably shouldn't have thrown it, but like incredible interception. But they were moving the ball well. They were like they hung in there with Georgia the entire time. And honestly, at this point, it feels like to me, which this never happened with Nick Saban in Alabama, but it feels like even these last couple years for Georgia almost lost to Kent State at home 2 years ago. And then they win the title that year. So I just think as long as they're not losing these games, I think it's just goofy to overreact because obviously they go play at Texas. They show up for those big games. Obviously, some of these can slip up and get you from time to time, but Georgia is still the team that I think wins the national championship as of right now. But it was definitely a shock. And prayers for DJ Lagway. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad as what it was thought to be. And there's actually a chance that he'll play this weekend. So that'll be definitely something to monitor because they're like 3 touchdown underdogs at Texas this week. So, but yeah, DJ Lagway out. And then, that team, I don't think you can even fire Billy Napier at this point. The way that they've been able to like get things lined up and battle in certain games and win a couple games, like they've got the freshman running back and was it Bott? Jaden Bott? That's some I'm struggling tonight with names. It's late. I was up till 1 a.m. last night watching Baylor Gonzaga. So forgive me. But freshman running back, freshman quarterback in Lagway, it'd be tough to fire that guy because those guys might end up leaving. So it'd be tough to fire Billy Napier at this point, in my opinion. I think you got to keep him. And then I guess I should mention my Kentucky Wildcats went and battled with Tennessee, but I don't think that's anything to worry about with Tennessee because I don't think Kentucky's that bad. Like, we're 3-6. The record is horrendous. We're not going to make a bowl, I don't think. I mean, we'd have to beat Texas. I'm not even saying we're like a good team. We're just not that bad. Like, you don't beat Ole Miss if you're that bad. You don't hang with Georgia by 1 point if you're that bad. Like, this team shows up for these big games, and it was just another case of that. And I will say, to highlight Tennessee a little bit, Nico, that was the best game I think I've seen him play. He was hitting the deep balls. The pass to the tight end in the end zone that Jordan Lovett ended up like kind of popping and making him fumble. A lot of tight ends, a lot of wide receivers, a lot of running backs will come down with those more likely than not. That was a great throw. The one, I think it was to Chris Brazzell in the end zone that he dropped. He didn't even have to dive for it. It might have been Dante Thornton. But that one was perfect. Best throw I've seen Nico make all year, probably. So I think that's definitely a highlight for him. And then Dylan Sampson. He's literally wake up, eat some scrambled eggs, score 2 touchdowns. That's like his daily checklist. And that's what he does every single Saturday. So Dylan Sampson, and he also needs some more light because I know they're trying to push the narrative a little bit on ESPN of how incredible he's been this year, but he's literally historic when it comes to SEC records, and he just doesn't get the hype. And Tennessee wouldn't be quite where they are without him. But yeah, and I mean for Kentucky, like I didn't expect us to even. I didn't know we would cover. I thought we would cover. I told people not to bet that game. Don't bet Tennessee to cover that spread because it's just like this team has showed up for these games. But we did have 5 defensive players out. Ended up losing another. Lose Barry on early. It was just, this team's just so banged up and we're missing starting running back, missed our backup. And yeah, it's just a tough time for the Cats right now because everybody's banged up, but I'm proud of the way they fought and they don't give up. That's one thing. And I think it's a testament to Stoops and a lot of these players and stuff. They have not given up at all. So it's been awesome to see. So, like I said, to make a bowl, we're going to have to win out. I mean, we can probably beat Murray State and maybe beat Louisville, but the Texas one's going to be tough. So we'll see how that one goes. We're going into a bye week now. Hopefully get some guys healthy. All right. Now, the Heisman rankings for Week 11 as we head into Week 11. Number 1, I still have Ashton Jeanty. Now, this is probably controversial because I don't think anybody else still has him 1. But the reason I have him 1 is because I don't think 150 and 2 touchdowns should decrease where you're at. Also, I think he's going to be floating around this 1, 2, 3 spot the entire time because the second half of this game showed it for me. He had, at halftime, I think he had 14 carries, 36 yards. And that second half, I was like, he's not going to play. They're up so much. They're beating the crap out of San Diego State. He doesn't need to play. But at this point, I know they want to make the playoff. And, that first half, I think San Diego State literally went into that and they're like, all right, let's knock him out of the Heisman race. I don't care if we lose by 2,000 points. Let's knock him out of the Heisman race. He's also wearing a big brace in the game, and there's all these different things that add up. And I was like, dang, that Heisman race is over. I tweeted it out at halftime. I was like, well, it was fun while it lasted. The Jeanty Heisman race is over. But that second half, they fed him. I think he had 17 carries, ends up with 150 yards and then like 30 receiving, or maybe it was 150 total, 2 touchdowns. So I think his stats are right back there. And what it showed to me was, even if they're blowing teams out, I think just to get him a trip to New York, they're going to keep feeding him and keep him just racking up numbers. And obviously these aren't the 300-yard games and historic games like that, but maybe he's got a couple more in him and he's got to get healthy real quick. Two have Cam Ward. I think if you told me to have a blank ballot and you didn't give me odds or anything, I think I'm taking Cam Ward to win it. One, it's a quarterback award. A lot of the quarterbacks win it. I mean, what? So Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young. Then it was a receiver, but then Joe Burrow, Kyler, Baker, Lamar. Like there's this long list. A lot of quarterbacks win it. And if Miami's going undefeated in the ACC, and if they're going 12-0, no matter what happens in the ACC championship, if they have that record and he's putting up these numbers, I mean, he single-handedly has won them a couple games. So, yeah, Cam Ward sitting there at 2. Travis Hunter at 3. This, honestly, if this is to the best player in the country and I was the one voting and it was all on me, this would probably be my guy. I know this is my personal rankings, but it's got a little bit of, like, not opinionated, but like what I kind of think is going to happen. I think Travis Hunter is going to kind of get snubbed a little bit just because the stats and like numbers don't back him up as much. But this guy's won Offensive Player of the Weeks. He's won Defensive Player of the Weeks. He's playing like 140 snaps a game. And this Colorado team, there's a path for them. They have a chance to end up making the college football playoff. I mean, as of right now, they're sitting at 20 with a big opportunity this week in Lubbock. If they can beat Texas Tech this week, coming off their high of beating Iowa State, I think Travis Hunter might sneak up into like the 2 spot. And then 4, Dylan Gabriel. I think it's those 4 just chilling above everybody else. Dylan Gabriel was very, very close to breaking the all-time passing touchdowns record that I believe Case Keenum has. And then the all-time yards record he might end up breaking as well if he continues this path. Dylan Sampson up to 5 for me. I think if he's just going to keep doing this, he has to be around that range. Caleb Johnson at 6. I mean, they put up 42 against a really, really great football team this week. And if he keeps doing that, I mean, he's kind of the heart and soul of this team, in my opinion. Diego Pavia at 7. Curtis Rourke at 8. Riley Leonard at 9. And the first appearance for Cam Scattaboo at 10. That's my Heisman list and kind of the reasons why. And obviously those towards the bottom can change a little bit. But I think if Curtis Rourke continues to lead this Indiana team, and if he can keep balling the way he is, like the way he did against Michigan State where they scored 47 unanswered, and if he can do something like that on the Ohio State week, I think this guy has a chance to go to New York as well. So that's my list as of right now. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith is barely off there. Shador Sanders is barely off there. So a couple guys that I had to leave off, but it is just a top 10. So now going into week 11, we have a couple games that I want to note to watch. The number one game where game day is, all of this, Alabama at LSU. This is a elimination game. Loser goes home, and winner still got a chance to make a college football playoff. This game is just extremely, extremely pivotal in the college football world. I just think that this game is in Death Valley at night, a place that even Saban struggled. And DeBoer in his first season, it's going to be tough. Alabama's going to be the favorite going into it. But this is just a super tough game. And I'll be posting my picks later on this week. I got to wait to kind of feel it out a little bit and then see if any like injury report things pop up. So I'll definitely be posting those score predictions Friday, and that'll be on the list of score predictions. I mentioned the Florida at Texas one. Miami at Georgia Tech. This is a sneaky one because Miami plays everybody close, it feels like. Georgia at Ole Miss. I think if Ole Miss loses this, they're out. If Georgia loses this, then they have a elimination game against Tennessee here in a couple weeks. Or is it next week? It might be next week. But that's a super pivotal game for that reason. Obviously, Georgia's not out if they lose it, but I think it's going to be a elimination game for Ole Miss. Michigan at Indiana. I think Indiana will cruise, and they're still trying to prove themselves somehow. Even though, I mean, they're ranked 8th in the CFP right now, but they're still getting a little bit disrespected. Colorado at Texas Tech is going to be amazing. This one should be a ranked matchup. South Carolina at Vandy. That game, I mean, Vandy was 24 in the AP poll, but now they go based off the CFP, and neither of these teams are in it. So, unfortunately, no numbers by those names. And then Washington at Penn State, I'm super excited for. So, big opportunities for both those teams, and that one's just gonna be an awesome game. Now the college football playoff rankings. I will throw ESPN's CFP bracket on there and throw the credit to them. So if you're watching on video, this will be up on the screen. If not, you can go to ESPN's accounts and find it. Number 1 was Oregon. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Georgia. This was a little not controversial because Georgia and Ohio State we knew would be 2-3, but what order? And the way that they had talked about it between Joey Galloway and just all the guys on the show, the way that they described it was Ohio State has the better loss than Georgia. So, they obviously, Ohio State's loss is to the number 1 team on the road. Georgia's loss is to the number 11 team on the road. So they value the loss more important than they do the win. And I think Georgia has the better win, but, they value that loss better. Other than that, obviously, I mentioned it, Vandy not being in the CFP at all is wild. And they put Missouri in. Obviously, they won head-to-head, but Missouri being in the top 25 is criminal. I cannot believe that's the situation we're finding ourselves in. Louisville is up to 22 in there. There was a super interesting one, 21, Washington State. Washington State, they have to have, I think, 6 teams to be considered a conference, so they have 2 right now. So they can't get in as a conference champion. But the one thing they can do is get in as an at-large. So they'll have to be probably top 12, so they'll have to win out, probably kill everybody they play. But they'll have to do that in order to get to the college football playoff. Other than that, the first 2 out were SMU at 13, and then Texas A&M at 14. And then following that, they threw a bunch of SEC teams like around each other because they'll end up playing it out. And LSU right above Ole Miss from that tiebreaker when they played each other. But those teams will drop. A&M right in front of LSU because of that tiebreaker. So I know what they were doing, and obviously they're just saying like we'll play it on the field and we'll see what happens. But Boise State being in the top 12 already is super interesting because if BYU was to drop one at all, or the Big 12 champ, if they just end up being ranked lower than Boise State, then Boise State gets the first round bye and they get the 4 seed instead of having to play against like the 5 or whatever it ends up being. So yeah, it's a super interesting list. Let me know your all's thoughts. Leave some comments on it. Obviously, it's the first one. A lot of football to be played. So a lot of huge changing games here, and but yeah, I think Indiana is a super interesting one just because of the strength of schedule. I think they said it was 103rd in the country, and obviously they still got a couple tough games here, but they're just a super interesting one to me because it looks like where they're at, like if they were to go to Ohio State and just lose by like 20 something, then they could drop out and be 11-1, not in the college football playoff, which would be wild. But yeah, that's kind of the situation right now. So let me know your all's thoughts and let me know what you would change and what you were shocked by. Let me know that in the comments. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is the best time of the year. This is literally yesterday was Christmas morning for me because it's where my 2 favorite sports collide, and all these games are great. And I think it's amazing what college basketball is doing, where they bring us these awesome matchups in day one. They kind of sneak up on you, but then they throw them in within like the week before. So casuals got to know that like there were some big games coming up. The only issue is there was a game starting at 11:30 at night. I'll get to that one here in a minute. Another marquee game that was played that night was Texas and Ohio State played in Vegas in front of maybe 10 fans. I think I could probably count on 2 hands how many people were in those stands. I could not believe how little people there were. I know it's Vegas. I know it's 2 football schools. That was incredibly sad. Like they should have been paying people because they should have never showed the crowd. They should have like zoomed in on the court, never showed a crowd at all. That was horrible. That crowd was horrendous. But yeah, Ohio State, Jake Diebler era, the start of it. Rodney Terry, I think this is year 2 now. Obviously the coveted recruit Trey Johnson coming in, and he actually broke Kevin Durant's record. He scored 29 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. He looked phenomenal. The rest of the team, not so much. And I posted my personal like top 30 teams in the preseason, and I'm not as high on Texas as like what the AP poll is, and I'm just not super high on him. I don't know. There's just something about him. I do love Trey Johnson, love his game. But like I mentioned, Ohio State looked phenomenal. I think they had like 38 points at half, and they had hit like 10 threes. There was some crazy stat. Like They had made like 1-2 going into half. So it's not, you can't look at that and be like, all right, this is what we'll be this season, because you can't rely on that. You can't just hit all threes and call it a day. So that was interesting. But if you're an Ohio State fan, you can't be disappointed because you led from the very tip of the game to the final buzzer. And if you're in that point, I mean, Texas was just a slight favorite, but they're a ranked team. First game for your new coach, first game of the Jake Diebler era. And, yeah, I mean, they looked really good overall. I was obviously tapped in as a Kentucky fan to kind of visualize and see what Aaron Bradshaw is going to look like in this Diebler system. But he didn't look phenomenal. He looks a little rusty still. Like he kind of looked the same as he did at Kentucky. And obviously he's still got the potential. And maybe Diebler can get that out of him. But he didn't look great. Arthur Kaluma had flashes, but, I mean, he didn't look phenomenal either. So, super interesting team, and I'm excited for him because I've mentioned it multiple times now. The Big Ten is wide open. Ohio State can make a run in there. And, yeah, I think Ohio State's probably going to be ranked next week when the next AP poll drops. So, I really like this Ohio State team, and we'll see kind of where they shape out as the season goes on. But, yeah, Trey Johnson, I mean, they literally compared him to Kevin Durant at halftime. 29 points is incredible. So, he was just a hooper. He can score at all three levels and super lengthy and a really good wing. And I think he'll probably end up being like a top 5 pick. Obviously, that's an overreaction off of one night, but the way he played was phenomenal. Some of the other freshmen, got to mention this freshman class because I don't know what was in the water and what year would these kids have been born? Like, this is class 2024. These like 2006 kids? Or, yeah, somewhere around there. Whatever was in the water needs to be studied because the freshman class in college football, you have Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, Ryan Wingo, Caden Durham, you have Dylan Raiola, Bryant Wesco. Like the class is incredible in football. I've been saying for like weeks, this is the greatest college football freshman class of all time. And it's not just because of like the new era and it's always getting better, but like this freshman class is loaded in college football. And this is the best freshman class in college basketball that I've seen in a long time. Like this freshman class is incredible. Duke literally has 3 guys that might be lottery picks. It's insane. So I'll talk about 2 of them. Cooper Flagg and Con Knipple. They combined for 40 points. The difference is, though, Con Knipple, that guy is, in the wise words of Tyler Hero, I'm a bucket. That guy's going to go out and he's going to have games. I feel like he's going to do something where the media is going to say, is Cooper Flagg the best freshman on his team? You know, just to get some clicks. But there's going to be reason. He's going to have like a 30 ball, hitting 10 threes, similar to what Jared McCain would do at times last year. He's going to go out and just bang out a bunch of threes, and then there's going to be the question, is Cooper the best freshman on his team? And that's going to be crazy because Cooper Flagg, his best part of his game is just his impact on the little things. Defensively, there's numerous plays in the exhibitions. There's numerous plays the last night where you see the flashes of like, this is the number 1 pick. He's going to go and he's going to be a franchise player. He's getting rebounds. He's leading the break, passing, and he's got the court vision. So he had 18. Colin had 22, and that duo is going to be scary. They're going to be hated. They're going to be very hated. I'll end up hating them at some point probably. They both have an opportunity to do the Duke thing, and then Common Malawash is the other one I think might go first round. He's just like very, very, very raw, but the potential is through the roof. So, yeah, that freshman class at Duke is incredible. And they dominated Maine, so it was cool. The main event, Cooper Flagg, he got to beat his home state school. Derek Queen, he had a historic game. He had 22 points, 20 rebounds. It was the first 2020 game for Maryland since Joe Smith in the 1990s. He's incredible. He was also the first freshman to record a 2020 game since Michael Beasley did it in 2007. So what he's doing is incredible. Like this one game, and Derek Queen was a guy I wasn't super familiar with, but I'd heard a lot of hype when he committed to Maryland, and he's going to be super special to watch in the Big Ten all year. And then Will Riley, I think he ended up with like 31. Canadian freshman. He was choosing between like Illinois, Kentucky, and a couple others. Chooses Illinois, and if he's going to be doing anything similar to that, they're going to be super special all year because if he's going to be an extra piece added to what they already have. He's gonna be super awesome. This freshman class, I can't even believe it. And it's in football, basketball. This got to be the best freshman class of all time. Now I'll mention the marquee game, the game to get college basketball back, tipped off. Gonzaga Baylor, top 10 matchup, phenomenal opening game, and they have the right idea, horrible execution. So there's Monday Night Football. Obviously, football runs the world. NFL runs the world right now, or at least runs America. So that's going on, and that one you're not going to turn off. It ends up going into overtime too, which pushes everything back. They have to do their post game with Van Pelt and all these different things. So when I turned it, and I turned it on, I ended up turning off the Chiefs game because I was just watching strictly college basketball at that point. But I ended up turning it, and they don't even turn it to the broadcast of the college basketball game until it's like 8-1. So you miss a couple minutes already. So that was awful execution. Obviously, it went to overtime for the Monday Night Football, but still, get to the game on time. Like, this was crazy. So that kind of sucked. The camera angle, I don't know what was going on. They had one that was like lined up with the free throw line on this left side. So like when they were on the other end, it looked far, and then on this end, it was like, what is it? Like the angle was weird. Don't know what that was. So there's my complaints. That should be, well, another complaint, I guess. There's a 12,000 seat arena in Spokane, Washington, and Gonzaga plays in their kennel. I don't understand. I don't see, like, how's that fair? They play in like an NAIA gym, and the home court is crazy because it's so packed in and tiny. How are they not forced to play here? It just makes no sense. But yeah, now to the game. Gonzaga wins by 38, absolutely roll. And my national champion pick is aging pretty well through one game. I'm not going to jump to conclusions though, because the reason I liked Gonzaga so much was what they were able to bring back and retain from last year's team, bringing in Michael Ajayi, bringing in Caleb Battle. Those two additions, and they both came off the bench. I think Caleb came off the bench. I know Ajayi did. But they're both just phenomenal additions. But what they were able to retain was the real reason that I loved this roster so much. And Baylor's all new guys. Like, there's some older college basketball guys, Norchad Omier, Jeremy Roach, a few other transfers. Like, those guys are older, so, like, there's that argument, but they're all new to each other. And then VJ Edgecombe being a freshman. Like, it's crazy to jump to conclusions for this after this game because it's like a new team versus a team that's played together for over a year now. So I think it's hard to just jump to conclusions at that point. But one thing I do want to note, and I think Mark Titus was the first one I'd ever heard say this. He said this probably early last year was probably the first time I'd heard him. He either tweeted it or said it on a show or something. It all lines up. Baylor's defense became what it is now, to where they can't stop a parked car when Jerome Tang left for Kansas State. It all lines up there. They score 63 points and allow 101. That defense in the Big 12 ain't going to cut it. They're going to lose 15 games if that's how their defense can be all year. Obviously, it's game one. They'll figure it out. VJ didn't play great, but obviously we'll talk about his certain play. But VJ's not going to play that bad on numerous occasions. So, this Baylor team's going to be just fine. I think it's just crazy to overreact. It's basically a home game for Gonzaga. It'll be considered neutral site, I think. But and then they'll get another crack at it this weekend. So Baylor gets to play Arkansas this weekend in Dallas. So they'll probably allow a bunch of points again. If you're a betting man, I'd say take the over on that one. But I think Baylor's gonna be fine. A 38-point blowout's a little disturbing, but I'm just a huge fan of this Gonzaga team. I love these guys, and Nolan Hickman played great. And the thing that's super interesting about this team is I didn't know they were gonna do this going into the year. Like, I didn't know Ben Gregg and Graham Ike were gonna play together on the court at the same time, but they played phenomenal. And then there's the other big, is it Puff maybe? Braden Puff, I think was his name. The other big, he would come in and he would play great spot minutes too. So just the versatility of lineups that Gonzaga is able to put out there, where they can, the lineups they can just throw is crazy. like great shooting lineups. There's elite guard lineups, and I mean Nolan Hickman balled out. Danny, is that his name? Hold on, he came off the bench. I should know his name. But he came in the game and he checked in and was clipping right away. And there was just numerous guys that were coming off the bench and filling great minutes for Gonzaga. And it's all just versatility, all these different lineups that they're able to do. And Graham Ike, for a few minutes, he'd sit on the bench and they wouldn't miss a beat. So it was awesome to watch. Not Danny, Dusty Stromer. He checked in, hit 3 threes. So if he's going to be doing anything similar to that, he'll be really good. And not Puff, Huff. Braden Huff, that's the other guy I need to shout out. There's just a ton of size and just a great roster overall. Caliph actually did start. I wouldn't know because, ESPN wouldn't get us to the game by tip-off, so shout out ESPN. But the one thing, this kind of sucks because, if you're Gonzaga, you have a 38-point blowout, you're probably feeling pretty good, but the number one thing that everybody's going to take away from this game is the VJ Edgecombe dunk. Joe Few, Mark Few's son, checks into the game, and even Jay Williams and whoever else it was commentating, they were like, "Oh, this is a cool moment. This place is probably going to erupt if Joe scores a bucket." It's just super cool to see Coach's son get some clock in a top 10 matchup. You got to feel really good about that. And then he gets absolutely destroyed.
Might blow the roof off this place if Joe Few scores. And a steal for Joshua Jonwinna. Wow! VJ Edgecombe, my goodness. That staggered Joe Few.
Poor guy gets in the game. Welcome to the game, Joe. Welcome to the game. Oh, that's tough. You know what, though? Joe tried.
He did.
He tried. He jumped.
There's not even words to, what was done to him on that dunk. I don't even know, even the post game, when they had brought it up in the post game, the players were sitting there and they couldn't even keep a straight face. They all looked down. So it was incredible. That dunk was just one of the best dunks I think I've ever seen in my entire life. That was VJ's fourth point or third and fourth point. I don't know. It just stinks because that's going to be the number one play on SportsCenter. That's what everybody's going to be talking about. Even though you just won a game by 38 points. Your guy getting dunked on, it's going to be what's making the news. So that's just tough. Nice. Another game I need to mention, UCF upsets Texas A&M. A&M had a few shots there at the end to take it to overtime, but I saw this line come out as A&M is a 4-point favorite, and I like the squad that Johnny Dawkins built, all these different things, but UCF had just got blasted, and maybe there was not players playing, but they just got blasted against Georgia, and I was like, why is it 4 if they just got blasted by Georgia? I should have looked into it more. Maybe they weren't playing guys, but so I thought A&M -4 was kind of like a lock because I think A&M's going to be really, really good this year, but UCF gets a really big victory and they storm the court, and what a way to start the season in Orlando for Dawkins and his crew. And then lastly, I'll talk about a ton of different teams. Kansas and UNC played 2 horrible teams. It was Howard and Elon. Obviously, UNC had to battle a little bit. Purdue had to battle with Corpus Christi a little bit. Some good teams struggled, but then ended up pulling away, and it didn't end up being a huge deal. So I'll talk about all these different teams as they start to battle each other. And North Carolina, Kansas coming up. It's going to be something special. But I'll talk about my Kentucky Wildcats because we're I know I'm a little biased, but we're one of the most important stories going into this year because we were just a Hall of Fame coach just left us. We're bringing in a former player, an unproven postseason winner, and a guy that's very well respected across the sport. If you just listen to a lot of these other coaches talk about it and stuff. And it's showed so far. The exhibitions were both phenomenal. I went to the second one. And then I went to this game, playing Wright State, first game of the Mark Pope era, and we played phenomenal. This Wright State team was 4th, I think it was in points per game last year or points per possession, whatever it was. One of the best offenses in the country last year. We hold them to 63, 60, whatever it was. I think it was like 61, 62, 62, something around there. But nonetheless, holding them to 60-something is impressive. And we only hit 11 threes, and we score over 100. This team's just going to be fun to watch. So just the spacing and the shot creation and just all the different sets that we're able to run with this roster is amazing. And, I mean, Amari Williams, I was a little worried. He got banged up in the Minnesota State exhibition game, but he played last night. He played phenomenal. The two takeaways from that game were Kobe Bryant might be the greatest shooter ever touch a basketball, the most efficient guy in the world. And then Otega Owe continues to be the biggest surprise of the offseason, coming from Oklahoma. And he goes out, puts up 20 as well. So the biggest takeaway of this team so far, though, is we had 30 assists on 7 turnovers. This team is passing up good shots for great shots, moving the ball to find the right shot and not settling for terrible shots. Like, this team is a blast to watch, and there's going to be a couple games they may lose because they're not shooting well or something, but this Kentucky team is going to be a super fun team to watch, and I think this Mark Pope era started off a whole lot better than I even could have imagined. So this Kentucky team is going to be a lot of fun, and we get our first test a week from today. So when this comes out, it'll be, or probably when you're watching this, it'll be less than a week. We play Duke in Atlanta, and I will be in attendance, Champions Classic. So that's going to be a really fun one. And Kansas, Michigan State, I'm excited for because it's 2 Hall of Fame coaches, and obviously Kansas preseason number 1, and they'll probably be 1 at that time as well. So, yeah, I mean, that's going to be an awesome game too. I'm super, super excited about it to see all those teams there. So, Duke, big matchup next week for us. Really looking forward to it. So, I think that's it. Best time of the year. This is, I mean, we're getting into Christmas too. So, it's a really fun time for sports. And like I said, college football playoff coming out tonight. I watched that more than, I mean, I skipped about 4 different election type shows for to watch college football playoff because politics are politics for the birds. Keep politics out of sports. So thank you for tuning in. Comment what you thought about the college football playoff. Comment some hot takes you have after like day 1 and now day 2 of college basketball. Let me know your thoughts and what your takeaways are. And yeah, I mean, a couple teams look really good. Some teams struggle. So we'll see how it goes, and I'm excited for the season. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of The Jump. Follow the socials at the end of the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, show some support. It's all greatly appreciated. And peace.